go.
Alright, so I was obviously not necessarily unprepared for this day, but we had just gotten the Challenger, just put the exhaust on that previous day, and then Jared was like, well, let's take them out and see what they'll do. And I'm thinking, oh crap, my clutch. But I was not expecting my clutch to go out that day because we were going at it pretty good before I started filming. But I've been watching this clip over and over again, just how close the Challenger is to the 109. It was actually pulling on me. I don't know if that was because of my clutch, but they were neck and neck even when my clutch was just fine. Like, they were literally just digging back and forth. And I think it might have been because of the red line on the 9 is a little bit higher. But I didn't underestimate the Challenger, but it's got me thinking, is this possibly my new benchmark for performance backers and performance cruisers? Especially because the 109 has always been there, right?
Benchmarks. So originally the 109 was my benchmark, and the reason why I say that is because whenever I looked for, I guess, my impressions on a motorcycle, when I got on the bike, I compared that power to my M109. I compared cruisers, touring bikes, sports bikes, naked bikes, anything that I could get my hands on. I compared it to my 109 because this is what I pretty much rode at any point in time, right? This is my main bike. And after getting on the Challenger and riding it again, I'm realizing that I may have to reconsider, even though the Challenger is not my main bike, I don't own one. It makes me wonder, am I gonna have to reconsider what my benchmark is? And the 109, when Suzuki released the 109 in 2006, they essentially gave you everything at one point. There was no, you had to tune it, you had to, swap out a cam profile. You didn't have to do nothing to the 109 to get this 120 horsepower and 100 pound-feet of torque. Now, granted, that's not to the wheel, but that is to the crank. So, is the 109 like the best muscle bike out there? No. Of course, you had the X Diavo, you got the regular Diavo, you got the V-Max, you got the Honda VTX, you got the Triumph Rocky 3. There are so many different bikes out there that can be classified as a muscle bike. But a lot of these bikes didn't have the power that the 109 has, right? Now, they all have their own power in their respective ways. Like the V-Max, for instance, that's not even a V-twin, right? The Ducati X Diavo is a V-twin, but it has a lower displacement. The Rocket 3 isn't even a V-twin, it's a triple. But the capacity of that engine is just so massive, but it still puts out just ridiculous numbers, including the new one that just took the benchmark of muscle bikes and just took it to a whole nother level. So, now that we have the Challenger out here that's putting out 120 horsepower and almost 120 pound, I think it's putting out 122, correct me if I'm wrong, pound-feet of torque to the crank. It's just ridiculous as far as like what you can get from an American V-twin company now. Because like I said, back in the day, Suzuki's been doing this since since 2005, 2006. And of course, Harley Davidson with the V-Rod, they've had it since the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, 120 horsepower, and I think, what, 85, 86 pound-feet of torque? But I think the Diablo does like 156 horsepower and, you know, around that 90 pound-feet of torque number. So these muscle bikes, these power cruisers, as we call them, they've been putting out these numbers for a long time, but you've never really seen that since, I guess, Harley Davidson canceled the V-Twin, the Revolution Max. You didn't really have that. So it's got me just thinking, like, is the 109 no longer my benchmark? You know, can I really make that assumption since I don't really own the Challenger? Because I didn't underestimate the Challenger, but, you know, I figured with the added weight that the Challenger wouldn't, you know, pull on the 109. But really what it comes down to, if you're not on your game, if you have possibly a lighter rider on the Challenger, basically balancing out the weight between the 109 and the Challenger to some extent, it's dang near dead even. And to me, that's almost splitting hairs as far as which one's better than the other. Because of course, you know, you put the X Diablo next to an M109, the X Diablo won't necessarily come out. Oh, that's so sad, that poor little baby deer. Oh, roadkill. But if you put the X Diablo and the 109 side by side, the 109 more than likely will come out of the hole on the X Diablo. The X Diablo has less weight. It doesn't have as much torque as the 109, but the 109 has more torque, but it has more weight. But the X Diablo is going to overtake, obviously, on the top end. The same thing as the Rocket 3, but the new Rocket 3, obviously, I don't really know. I've never been on the Rocket 3, and I've never put the X Diablo side by side. But the X Diablo, it has that weight advantage, the same thing as the V-Rod. So these bikes are they have different power numbers, but when you compare the power to weight ratios, they're so close in comparison to each other. And that's why I always looked at the 109, because there's not really any other bike that you can get with this setup for this price. You know, you can get a good 109, use 109 for like 10 grand. You can get them brand new for like 11. And I know some of you out there will say, well, I got it for this price. It's, you know, this is still a bargain deal. So when I say benchmark, I'm looking at not necessarily the looks, because looks are always, you know, subjective, but you can't argue with a price and what you're getting for the money. And the Challenger, what makes the benchmark even more skewed to me, and it's also with the Rocket 3, and it's with the V-Rod, and it's with the V-Max and all these other bikes, is that the upgrade potential. Because there's not much upgrade potential with the 109. With the Rocket 3, with the V-Rod, and probably the V-Max, and the Challenger, once Lois and these aftermarket companies get their hands on it, with these dual overhead cam upgrades, you can turbo these bikes. You can add new cam profiles. You can get well past beyond the stock Challenger's power, or the V-Rod stock power, or the Rocket 3 stock power. You can get well, or superchargers rather. You can get well beyond the capabilities of these bikes. So again, when it comes down to it, the 109 is still, like, pound for pound, one of the best bikes you can get in this category. But man, the potential that the Challenger brings is just immense, man. Just the potential, man. It's just off the charts, and I'm just excited to see what they're gonna do with that. So it's like, the question is, you know, is it gonna become the new benchmark? Because, you know, it's just so much potential what they're pulling out of these machines now, and it makes me wonder how far along the Power Plus would have been if it were put into a Victory machine. Because we all know, well, through the grapevine anyway, the Power Plus was originally made for Victory. Victory people designed it. It was supposed to be in the Victory Vision, the Hammer, the Judge, like the Kingpin, those bikes, the Jackpot. That engine was meant for those bikes. And it makes me wonder what Indian has up his sleeve now that the Power Plus is introduced. What are they going to put that engine in next? Because it's just, the sky's the limit. And of course, now that you know, we have these aftermarket companies behind Indian, like, you know, Lois is the one that I know mostly. Like Lois and of course Tank Machine. I don't know if they do more cosmetic than they do aftermarket performance, but Lois, for instance, was able to get 200 plus horsepower out of the Thunderstroke, right? And that wasn't even a liquid. That's not even a liquid cooled platform. Of course, they had to put a supercharger and big bore kits and all that. But like I said, as far as like this 1800cc platform, liquid cooled platform, this 120 horsepower, 120 some odd, you know, pound-feet torque platform, it's just crazy what Challenger is possibly going to be. It's literally challenging the status quo. And like I said, I'm just excited that I now have something to look forward to, because I always looked at stuff like, man, the 109 is still pound for pound the best thing that you can get. But I'm curious what you guys think about that, because this is one of the most exciting times to ride motorcycles, because not only is electric starting to come into play, these companies are literally giving it to us like straight out, like Triumph, this massive 2500cc Rocket 3 pumping almost 200 horsepower on a power cruiser, and it's able to corner very close, at least what you're going to get on the street anyway, to a sports bike. It's ridiculous. And of course, not mentioning the XD Oval and the VMAX has been around for God knows how long, forever. But it's just a really exciting time to be riding motorcycles, and these benchmarks that were previously unthinkable, at least by, you know, rider standard. We don't think about what's next, right? But now that we see it, it's a reality. You know, these companies are just coming out with just bangers after bangers. But let me know what y'all think about that in the comments. You know, the Challenger, even though I don't plan on buying one, it's got me messed up in the head as far as like performance goes, at least with American V-twins, because we're not really used to this stuff from the factory. You know, the Brits and Europeans have been doing this for ages, but Indian really did something special, at least Victory did, and now we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. So let me know what y'all think about that. But I'm about to continue riding to get home. But until next time, guys, thanks for watching as always, and I will see y'all in the very next one. Peace out.